So my mum used to make us play this game at the dinner table called Best and Worst. You had to say the best thing that happened to you that day. You had to say the worst thing that happened to you that day.
Cool. I love this. Yeah.
But I want to know your best and worst interview. Who were they
my
and how did it go down?
Okay. Best interviews. I would have to start with Paul McCartney. Sir Paul. That was one of my first Today Show interviews.
Yeah.
And they told me I was going to interview Paul McCartney. I'm like, wait, hold up, wait. Me? Like first timer. I'm like, I'm still cutting my teeth here at the Today Show. Oh no, you're going to go out to LA. You're going to shoot an interview. I could not believe it. It ended up being the most incredible highlight of my life. I think just sitting next to a legend, talking to him. He also played his guitar a little bit for me and sang. It was amazing.
Wow.
Worst. Ooh, I've had some doozies. I mean, listen, I've interviewed murderers. I've sat in prison cells across from them, and it's jarring, it's alarming. Those are, my 48 hours Dateline type of interviews. I think the worst interviews are always when you're doing a dance when you're talking to somebody. You know this. Same way when you're cooking for people. It's like it's a very carefully choreographed, like you're trying to get to know them. It's a little bit like dating.
Yeah.
And if they're not playing or they're not budging or they're like holding their ground, it's really hard to do that job sometimes. Or trying to get information out of them when they're speaking about their, like politicians speaking about their talking points.
Right.
So I would have to say there have been times though where the interview subject was so good looking. I remember on one particular occasion.
Natalie, I didn't mean to talk about right now. I was thinking maybe we'd talk about one from the past.
Yes, and I was cooking in the kitchen. No, I'm kidding. No, this was, yeah. And I remember just staring into his eyes and I could not remember the rest of what I was going to ask him.
And how'd you pull it together?
I think I asked him one question and he just kept answering. So I was like, okay, keep talking.
Keep talking. That's hilarious.
It was crazy.
My God, your Paul McCartney story.
Yes.
I worked in London for many years and I ran a restaurant called Quo Vadis. And they said Paul McCartney's in the restaurant. And I was such a huge Beatles fan, so I was so excited to cook for him. He was vegan. But this is back at a time when vegans were this abstract, like, we didn't even really know the rules back then. Because you're like, so you can't use eggs, you can't use butter, what about honey, so... Anyway, I cooked him this dish. He loved it. He asked me to come up and speak to him.
Wow.
And it was one of the best moments in my life of ever cooking. But his office was just around the corner. So then he started coming all the time. And I had to cook vegan, it's one thing to just do it once, but to try and do a vegan dish every single time someone just unannounced, pops into the restaurant. Back then, of course,
now you're a pro, right?
Absolutely.
And you can credit Sir Paul McCartney for getting you there.
I bet he has no idea that he's touched so many lives in all these different ways. That's pretty cool.
Beyond the music, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.